We have new business, and there's several items on here, but I just want to note and make publicly aware Dr. Grimeau has really done, I think, a fabulous job of updating the board and keeping us current with what's happening. There's been reports from principals, thank you, we appreciate that, and just a lot of information that has come through. And so a lot of these things, I mean, I'm sure that you've thought about them, you've had time to ask your questions, and so we're going to go ahead and move through them. So the first item under new business is the second reading of the proposed capital asset policy. Mr. Markham?
Yeah, last board meeting I brought this to you. This would be part of our fixed assets that TW Wells is doing for us to get our fixed assets in place that we didn't have as part of our audit. So that will suffice that. So just asking for your approval of this proposed capital asset policy that you have would then go into our board policy and be in effect after your approval.
Is there a motion? Thank you. So there's a motion from Mr. Esposette. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second from Mr. Bedke. Any discussion? Then all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Permission to advertise the 2020 budget. Mr. Markham?
Okay, also in your packet is budget information for the 2020 budget year. And what I'll kind of outline how this all looks. So tonight I'm asking for your approval to advertise this budget. So what that means is we would advertise the proposed budget on our website 10 days prior to our next board meeting. We would also hold a public hearing prior to the next board meeting to take public comment on the proposed budget. And once that has been accomplished, then in October we would bring the same budget back to you for your approval for me to submit to the DLGF. And then ultimately they make the decision on any cuts in our budget as they see fit. Part of the budget that you can see is for the education fund. And remember, in 2019 of January, they changed how the budgeting worked. It went from the general fund to the education fund so that they could track educational only expenses. So when they did that, there used to be, for lack of a better word, silos, 3 different silos: bus replacement, transportation, and capital projects, which they put into one account now called operations. So that changed in January of 2019 on how we budget. Essentially, the general fund took what was the old general fund. They took superintendent's office, business office, maintenance, utilities, insurance, community relations. Those used to be in the general fund. They pulled those out and put those into now what is operations. Okay, so you can see the education fund, based on our estimated enrollment, the state is showing that we can receive $10,661,824. Again, that is the number the state has given us, which is essentially a 2.39% increase over last year in our education fund. That is based off of an enrollment of 1571 that we estimated. As of today, we are looking at around 1557 for our enrollment. Now again, that's just today. There's plenty of time before the fall count, which is September 13th. So that puts us about 14 students under our per enrollment at this time. And then if we're under that, then they'll adjust our funding accordingly based on per student we're under. So about 14 students under our predicted enrollment. You're looking at about probably 77,000 they could reduce our education fund. Okay, But those are just rough numbers, obviously, because enrollment's going to fluctuate between now and the count date on September 13th. I know we're enrolling new students daily still, even today, and we probably will in the next few days and maybe into the next week or so. But on the flip side, we could also lose some as well, okay? I might add that last year's budget, the estimated enrollment was 1,603, and we were about 34 students below that a year ago. So right now, we're sitting at about 14, so we maybe estimated a little bit better at this point this year, okay? So just wanted to give you a little bit of background on where we're at right now with that. So that's an increase of about $218,115 over last year's education fund, okay? And part of that is the state did give some increases in percentages to schools for that. Our operations fund, we're proposing $3,883,500, which is about $30,000 more than last year on what we proposed. The DLGF last year did not cut our operations fund proposal that we submitted. So, and then we're also asking roughly the same on our tax rate. Last year when we submitted all this, we submitted a 1.5667. We would propose to submit a 15384, which last year resulted in a 0.86 tax rate when the DLGF did all their calculations and finalized it all. So nothing major difference-wise in our proposed budget at this time. And again, I gave you the breakdowns of where those monies go and what they kind of look like. Again, it's just a proposal. We submit it. The DLGF will ultimately declare what we receive operational-wise, and then the state will determine what we get educationally based on enrollment. One thing to take note this year is they've added a second count. So in the spring, we always had a count of where we're at with our enrollment. They did not adjust financially, take money away or add money to your budget over the last couple of years with that count. They just use it as information. This year, they will adjust your budget based on that enrollment. So over the last 4 years, we've averaged losing 13.4 students between the fall semester and the spring semester. So just something to take into account. So when they do that count in February, if we lose some more students, they'll adjust our state aid that way and reduce it some more. So those are just some things to consider. It's obviously a new component that we haven't had to deal with, that I haven't had to deal with until this year. So now there's two counts that go into effect that will affect funding from the state on the educational side. Questions?
Just so I know, the 1.6 transfer from education to operations,
Yes.
what is that?
The one, right now, this last budget, 2019 budget, we had estimated to transfer around $2 million from our education to operations fund, and that's to help bridge that gap when they removed the superintendent's office salary, the business salary, the maintenance, utilities. When they moved that from the general fund to the operations fund, they didn't necessarily fund it. So we have to be able to pull monies from the education fund to fund those things as well. So this proposal, the state wants you to not be more than 15% in that transfer. We're at about 20% with that transfer with this current budget that we're in. So we're over what they are recommending. Part of that is we went back and looked what we were spending in those accounts, and it was about 20% of the general fund budget at that time when it was the general fund. I'm proposing we're going to get close. This is about a 15%, so it's a 1.6 transfer to make those coverages. So we're trying to reduce that to get to where the state wants us to be.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Markham, when you say advertise this on the website, would that be this page, or is there more to it?
It'll be through Gateway, where we have to submit all of our numbers. So with your approval tonight to advertise, within 10 days of the public hearing meeting, which I said will be before the next board meeting, we'll have that public hearing. we'll advertise in the paper 10 days before about that public hearing. And then on Gateway, it'll show where they can go if they want to look at that. It'll show numbers, it'll show the capital projects plan, it'll show bus replacement plan as well. That's a change. We used to have to advertise the capital projects plan in the paper and the bus replacement plan. Now we do not. We just have to put the notice of the meeting, and then if people want to go see it, they'd have to go to the website, and that'll be posted on that notice as well, where they can find our plan.
Do you know when that meeting will be?
The public hearing for the budget meeting will be before our next board meeting.
Okay,
So,
it's not planned.
like a normal, regular board meeting, we'll just hold a public hearing right before that, take public comment, and then from that point, we'll close that meeting, and then we would begin the regular board meeting from there. And then again, this budget isn't approved until the October board meeting, where I'll ask for your approval of the budget. You give me my approval, I will then put everything into Gateway and submit it to the DLGF, and then it's in their hands at that point. And then usually in December, they come back and give us notice on what we will be getting.
I see we have 135,000 in here for sealing parking lots and carpet, and 60,000 for a tennis court resurface, and a 75,000 for restroom upgrades. Restroom upgrades was part of that Barton Co. dilemma. Where do I find the number for fixing the roof on this building?
That was not included in this budget cycle as we were meeting with other people about looking at a GO bond for that.
Okay, so we don't set any money aside every year for maintenance of the buildings?
Yeah, and that's all included in part of that plan. And just so you know, the capital projects plan, that is just rough estimates of things that we could potentially do. Also know with the capital projects plan, I know that Dr. Grimeau, we're going to be doing some strategic planning and committees, and those things could change. And maybe we'll have a different priority in what we want to do down the road. They just require us to give them a 3-year plan, the state, for something to look at. So those are some things that, as I look back in past plans, are some things that hadn't been done yet, or things that we would want to look at potentially to get into, like carpet replacement, maybe get in a cycle of doing a few rooms a year in the different buildings. I know at MIS, some of the restroom stalls are starting to get in bad shape, so that would be some of the restroom renovation type things.
And typically, something as large as a roof is not really done through this because we're limited on our funding. So we typically go outside to a GO bond or something along those lines to do those large projects. So just so you're aware.
Do we have a timetable on that, or?
We are still waiting.
Yeah, we had met with the financial people, and they're running the numbers and trying to find what might be our best options to do that. So as we talked to them and interacted with the different roofing people, hopefully they'll get back to us here in the next month or so with some numbers that we can bring to you.
Thank you.
All right, so we would need a motion for permission to advertise the 2020 budget.
I'll make a motion.
I don't know who spoke. Okay, so there's a motion by Mr. Hensley. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second by Mr. Esposito. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. All right, approval for the youth football to use facilities.
Yeah. Mr. Buddy Brunn, the director of our youth football, contacted us, and he does this every year for the last 37 years. They have done youth football on our game football field and practice, junior high field, and on Sunday afternoons. They typically start mid to late August with games, and they go through October. So he's just asking for permission to use the grounds. They utilize the concession stand and the restrooms and all of that. Again, they've done this 37 years, and they usually end up giving back to the programs in different ways, with sometimes a monetary donation or equipment donations or those type of things to our high school program and junior high programs. So just asking for your approval for them to be able to continue to do that.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Mr. Turflinger. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Mr. Hensley. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Yeah, I had just a quick question. I mean, is there a extra liability cost test for that?
No, they're under our general coverage. One thing I will point out, all of the tackle football players in that league, they do have to sign off on a concussion form and the heat illness and cardiac arrest form, similar to even what our student athletes have to do to compete. So they have to follow those same guidelines. Also, all of their coaches have to take online classes that show tackle football, the correct technique, the heat illness, the concussion awareness, all the same things our high school coaches have to do. That is a state mandate, so they have to do all that as well.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Approval to raise the adult breakfast price. Mrs. Landis?
Mrs. Landis is not here. I'm going to take this for her tonight. As she was putting in the numbers for the Indiana Department of Education as it went to our adult school lunch and breakfast program and pricing, she was required to raise the adult breakfast price at the junior senior high school. We could not submit our recertification until we did that based on all the numbers. This year that we're receiving more reimbursement, which factored into the current adult meal cost of $1.85, does not satisfy the current USDA requirements. So the USDA is requiring us to charge at least $1.86 per adult breakfast meal at the junior senior high school only. So she is requesting your approval to raise the adult breakfast price at only the junior senior high school to $1.90 to meet this requirement. So just seeking your approval to raise the adult breakfast 5 cents to meet the USDA requirement.
Is there a motion? So motion by Mr. Esposito. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And a second from Mr. Turflinger. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. The mini cheerleading camp, Mr. Screeton.
Coach Markham, you would take this one too? All right, usually Dr. Luker presents these, but I kind of have the fortune to do it tonight. Our cheerleading camp our cheerleading program is requesting to have a mini cheerleading camp. This is, I don't know if I put it, how many years they've done this, but this is something they've done the last few years. They run it the first week of September, a couple days, and then the first home football game, which this year is September 6th. It's kind of cool seeing all the little girls out there cheering with the high school team. So this is something we've done in the past few years.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Hensley? There's a motion from Mr. Hensley. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second from Mr. Bedke. So is there any discussion? All those in favor? And opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. The rental of MIS for September 15th from 12 to 6 p.m.
Good evening. Becky Landis, who's the food service director, she's a member of this church group, Old German Baptist Church. They have utilized our facility at MIS over the past few years in order to facilitate their youth group. They have a rather large youth group, and so they've used our facility on this specific Sunday afternoon to facilitate providing opportunities for the youth in their church, kind of outreach and things of that nature. So I'm just seeking your approval that this group can continue to use this facility for
Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion for Mr. Esposito to approve this rental agreement. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Mr. Turflinger. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. The band DC, is it DCL or DCI field trip? Well, that was deleted, sorry. I forgot to cross it off on mine. Appointment change of the North Manchester Redevelopment Commission member from David Turflinger to Raju Shaw. Mr. Turflinger.
I contacted Mr. Shaw to see if he'd be interested in taking my place on that commission. I feel like he would do a lot better job at it than I am, being a businessman here in the community. I already have the Heartland and the new committee with the superintendent.
Okay, so is there a motion?
I think Mr. Shaw should make the motion.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
So there's a motion from Mr. Shaw. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And a
Since
second
you
from
said
Mr.
beside you.
Hensley. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, do we have discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did it to yourself.
Approval of the AT&T cell tower contract, Mr. Markham?
I sent to you some of the options we have here with your approval. As you might recall, AT&T came to us sometime back last summer about putting a cell tower on our property. We gave them a couple different locations. The first one that they wanted to do would have put a tower on our football lights at our stadium. Didn't feel real comfortable with that, just with the location, and they would have to fence all that off and would need 24/7 access, which means if there was an activity or an event going on the track or the football field, they could be there with visitors on the other side. It just could have been a hassle. So we suggested to them the site where we currently have a tower on the northwest side of the building, kind of back by our loading dock, where there's a current tower there now. That tower has no function right now, other than it does hold our transportation antenna on that tower. So they went through their processes to see if that location could work for them. Their ultimate goal is to be as close to the center of town as possible in a high spot, obviously for the best reception for their potential AT&T customers. At this point, they sent a contract. Mr. France had reviewed it, made some changes to it, sent back to them, and they resent it back. He was comfortable with the languages and suggestions that he had as far as the contract went. The contract states that they would pay us $850 a month in rent, which is over $10,000 a year for that tower to be on our property. They would also reaffix our transportation antenna back to that tower as well, so we would not lose that. So essentially, AT&T is in the spot now where we need your approval to sign the contract for them to move forward and go through the rest of the process with the town and jump through the rest of the hoops that they would need to. So essentially, if you approve this contract with AT&T tonight, you're giving them permission to move forward in the process. That doesn't mean the tower will necessarily happen and be on our school grounds if they would run into barriers with the town of North Manchester or other obstacles or paperwork that they have to file. If they would clear all those obstacles and get the permission, then you're giving them the okay that the tower would be on our school grounds in that location. So seeking your approval for that, if that is something that you are open to having a cell tower on Manchester Community School grounds.
Do we have a motion?
I have some information I'd like to share with the board before we move to that, all right?
Discussion?
Yeah, I did some research, and these cell towers give off RF energy. And the federal government sets guidelines, and they say cell phone towers are safe at this level. And the American Cancer Society says that it might be safe at this level, but there's other further studies that need to be done. And, you know, they're studying it right now because everybody's carrying a phone around in their pocket. And I had the opportunity to go look at this proposed site, and it's literally from Bryce to me, from our cafeteria window. Now, I understand revenue, and I understand we have a lot of property, but putting it 3 feet from our cafeteria and having all that energy right over top the cafeteria, I just don't think it's a good idea. I did a little research today on Beacon Schneider. We own 3.42 acres out here west of the junior high with an access that goes all the way out to 9th Street. And I've dealt with these companies before, and if they really want it, they'll put a driveway to it, and they'll put a fence around it, and they'll put power to it. I just don't think we, you know, there's too many unknowns on the health effects to take a chance on putting this thing right over top of our cafeteria. I understand their convenience, and I understand 24/7 access, but I don't know, I can't support it.
Based off the health risk?
Yeah.
The location or the tower itself?
Yeah.
The location,
So,
right?
yeah, like I said, if they wanna go out here to the northwest corner of the property and put a driveway to it, I'm all about revenue or free services, however they wanna compensate the school corporation, but where the tower is now and putting a cell phone tower there, you know, the government, we've all watched the government set levels, and then they find out 15, 20 years down the road that, oh, we made a mistake, maybe we shouldn't have did that, and I just, you know, we're talking about our kids and our grandkids here, I just don't think that's a good place for it. I'm not opposed to putting it somewhere else on the property, but I can't support that location right next to the cafeteria. You know, our employees, our kids are in that thing every day, 9 months a year.
Jeremy, is there another suitable location on the property, or what would they say to that? Because I've kind of been benchmarking a couple school systems. One of them was Fisher's, and they actually pulled a cell tower off of one of their schools, you know, and who knows? I mean, I'm not a bit of a scientist, but I'm not a scientist in that area to know if it's harmful or not, but
Yeah.
it is right over the school. So.
Yeah. No, we did suggest potentially some land back here that we own for it. At that time, the rep was not excited about that because it was near homes. And I think probably in his experience dealing with where to put cell towers, putting them near residential homes were probably not a high priority, and the landowners obviously didn't care for that. So he was kind of leery of that. We also suggested more down by the MRA in that area. They weren't excited about that because it was a low-lying area, and they wanted to get that obviously up as high as they can, that antenna, for more coverage. So that's where we kind of came back to that potential area. And again, I don't know if there's a risk or there isn't. I know if you get on and Google it, you see both sides for sure. And that's the hard part because there probably isn't a right answer either way. So I mean, I'm open. If this is something that maybe you wanted to table, I could reach back out to him and see if there's another location on our property that may work, and see.
I mean, I think the risk thing is potentially something real, but, you know, I've looked at the number of these studies, not on cell phone towers, but a study can be skewed any way it wants to be, and I just don't know what's real. You know, is the study, do I have to be right next to the tower or the antenna for all that radiation or whatever it is that's being emitted? Does the barrier of the wall to the school prevent it? I don't know. You know.
Probably not, because they get reception, so we'd probably get real good reception there.
We probably would.
Definitely.
I guess when I'm in my car traveling on 114 and I don't get reception, I wish I had a little more radiation entering my body. So I don't know, I think that maybe some more research on that aspect.
If you are interested, I could reach out to the gentleman and have him come to the next board meeting. If you had questions specifically, I'm guessing, if you ask him that, he's going to say, oh yeah, it's safe. I mean, I'm just making an assumption. But I don't know, there may be other questions that you have, or maybe he can give more detail. If that's something you want to hear, I'm open to doing that as well. So just giving you some options on where you can go with this. You know, and if you don't want to approve it tonight and table it, I'll just let him know, and, you know.
I'm kind of, my 2 cents, I would lean towards tabling it. I think aesthetically, it may not be real pleasing, and in $10,000 in the budget is a pretty small amount, not to minimize the value that we could use that money for, but I wouldn't be comfortable with that location for multiple reasons. Could we put a Nike logo on it and get a few more? A little more funding?
Possible.
What does the tower look like, different than what's out there now?
It would be fairly similar, I think just a little bit wider base because it would be taller. It would probably be about, Tony, do you remember how much taller? 30 feet? 40?
Sorry?
Was it?
I think it's at least 50 foot
50,
taller.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a 150-foot tower, and ours out there currently is around 100, so.
And keep in mind, we already have RF antennas on there. That's for the bus transportation.
And I just want to speak from experience. When I was in East Allen County Schools in the Harding attendance area, specifically Harding had a cell tower on their property, and it's been there for 20 years. And I don't know of any issues. I know there's a lot of conflicting information, studies out there, as there is on probably anything that we would look at. So just know that I don't know of a lot of students or staff from there that's had any issues. Just my personal experience, I'm throwing that out there. I know you don't think it's much in the budget, but anything that we can have is good, and especially if we're talking, we might be down some more students, so just throwing it out there. I'd love to see it happen. It may not be in that location, but if we could maybe work with them and see what we could do, I would really recommend that's the direction that we go, if you're concerned about where it's going to be located.
Well, is there anything in the contract for potential future liability?
It deals with it, but if you're talking about health exposure, no.
What's the liability, just falling over or something like that, damage?
Yeah, damage to property, I think the main aspect.
I would imagine it would be very difficult to prove that any health things were directly caused by that.
Would need a very good expert witness, yes.
Yeah. I mean, my personally, I don't like the location. I mean, we've got so much land here, I can't believe there's not somewhere else that would work that's not right on top of the school.
Let's just put it in the cafeteria.
And to be clear, I'm not against a cell phone tower on property. I'm against the location.
Yeah, if we could just be a little ways away.
We're talking about $1 billion corporation here. I mean, the rep may not like it, but if they really want this location, they'll put a road in, they'll run the power back there, they'll do it. I've watched them do it. You know, right out here at Disco, they put one up in the middle of a cornfield, and they had to run the power and put a driveway in. I mean, if they want it, they'll pay for it.
And they may find somewhere else. That's quite possible as well. But the other thing, I didn't look through it in great detail, but it appears it's a 90-year lease at their option only? Or is there any, can we get out of it from our end?
Only if they default on payment of the rent or any other required term, but if they follow the terms, then yeah, it's 90 years at their option.
I mean, that seems well more than they would need to repay their investment.
I would assume so.
seems like if we do table this and have some more discussion with them, maybe bring that back to 25 years at their option, something more reasonable.
We can always propose it, whether they accept it or not is up to them at that point then.
So I have a question. If we choose a different, or they choose a different location, they go, are we gonna put the school bus tower on that location, or are we gonna have a tower in a different location and the same tower here? I mean, none of us like the location, but we already have a tower there.
I'll answer that. If we were to move it off to the west, the bus antenna would have to stay there.
The bus tower would stay where it is. So regardless, we're gonna have a tower in the location that none of us like.
And the primary reason for where they're going for is central location within the community. Obviously, if they start taking it, even moving it a few hundred yards to the west is taking it away from customers in the southwest corner. They're just trying to improve connectivity for everybody in the community. They have towers to the north and south, but nothing here in the community. If you try to find someplace else, you're talking about a lot of trees, and there's just really nothing that they've been able to find.
So at the end of the day, if they choose Manchester Community Schools to put a tower on, we're gonna have two towers, one that's a 100-foot tower and the other would be a 150-foot tower. If they go to the location it's currently at, we'll have one tower, it's 50 feet taller than the current one, and it'll have a dual purpose.
But what's the reason, Tony, that we couldn't move our antennas?
The connectivity that we have with being able to transmit the lines. So if I'm moving it out somewhere there, I still need a way to bring that back in so our intercom systems work so that Imogene and the schools can listen to it. I guess we could install bus radios in there, but that would be at a pretty good clip.
Okay.
I guess a better way to state is those are hardwired to systems within the buildings here currently.
So you'd either have to trench or,
I don't think trenching would be possible. Depending on how far away we would get it, we would have to come up with transmission, RF transmission type. Put a bus radio in each of the offices.
Well, I've got them, and I sure would like better reception around here.
Yeah, me too.
Mr. Flack, do you have thoughts?
Oh, I have no problem with it, I guess. I guess my only point is that, kids are glued to these all day long. I guess I don't understand the difference, or with the tower, so I have no problem with it. I'm with Mrs. Gerboa. But $10,200 is a nice little chunk of change to have to do other things with. But I have no issues with it.
I didn't realize this discussion was coming tonight like that, but I too thought it was a really great deal. It's an existing tower, so the idea of like the tower's already there. It's gonna be 50 foot taller, and it's gonna be someplace, and to get money for something that we already have in existence and a contract that Mr. France feels is fair. I thought that looked like a good thing. Is there other discussion? So I believe what we need, but please, Mr. France, correct me if I'm wrong, what we're asking for is a motion for approval of a AT&T cell tower contract. So is that the motion that we need, or somebody could make a motion to table this and continue the discussion later?
Somebody could make either or motion.
Okay, so I need a motion for us to continue the meeting.
I make a motion to table it and go back to the rep and see if there's another location. I just kind of feel like we're putting money ahead of student and staff health with the unknowns, you know. Like I said, if there was a straight line graph that said, you know, below this and above that, but you have to do testing and the Cancer Society doesn't agree with it. I mean, this is microwave radiation, so I'm just gonna make a motion to table it until we can get some more information about another location that's not right over top the building.
So there's a motion to table this discussion until they're, table the discussion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second. So a motion from Mr. Turflinger and a second from Mr. Shaw. Is there further discussion? I feel like it's an unfair statement to say that if somebody votes for the cell phone tower, that they are voting for money over students, because I think there's a lot of ways and a lot of lenses to look at this. So for me, I'm definitely still thinking about our students first as I make this decision and any decision. Is there any other discussion before we vote? All right. All those in, oh,
I was just gonna ask Jeremy, if we do table this, do you get the sense from AT&T that they will walk away?
I do not. No, I don't get that sense at this point. Yeah, no. I think they like our location. It's a prime location for them, and I think they would try to work with us the best they can, for sure. But again, like I said, they still have multiple layers that they have to go through for it to even get to us. But they can't move forward until we approve the contract with our school grounds as part of it.
I guess, I mean, what's the sense of urgency?
At
Are
this
they doing a
point,
replacement for upgrade? Is that what they're doing?
they'll handle all the costs of everything that they need to do to make it happen, obviously. So I think if you table it, I can contact him this week and we can hash out some potential other areas to see if it works for him. And if it doesn't, then maybe it can't work. But, you know, I'm all right with that if you guys table
I
it.
guess the question I'm asking, is this a new tower or are they moving one?
It'd be brand new, to my knowledge.
So to increase their reception in the area?
I guess my 2 cents is I would prefer you to table this and let us go back to the drawing board, then turn it down, and then not have any option maybe to go back to it, so, for what it's worth.
I'm just not in favor of having 2 towers on our property. I mean, there's cell phone towers all over the world. I'm not sure about the safety aspect. Again, you can look at any study and it'll tell you anything you want it to tell you. Depends on who writes it. And now we have 2 towers. We have, I don't know. The tower's going somewhere in this town.
Yeah, it would. I mean, I'm an electrical engineer, and keep in mind the distance, it's an exponential decay that you get, the distance you go. So you go,
I get that.
so a small amount of distance makes a huge difference in the amount of energy that's coming out. So that's the extreme proximity is my problem. You go 100 feet, I'm fine with it.
Why do they go 150 and we're at 100? I guess that's the question in the back of my mind, but we can talk about that later.
So just to clarify, so the motion is to table, and if we vote no, then we're voting not to table it, and then, like I guess I'm not quite sure then what that next step is, and I'm really sorry, I just don't understand.
This isn't to approve or deny the contract, this is just to, do we have the discussion later or do we continue it now?
Okay.
With the table part being for Jeremy to go back and talk to him and see if we have other options.
I guess if they come back with other options, we could still vote to put it where it is now. If that's,
And you're not getting the sense that they're going to say, well, we're done with you because you're dragging your feet? I mean,
No, I don't get that sense.
Okay.
The process is usually, I don't think, easy for them, no matter where they look to put a tower. Typically, I think they're used to this. And, I mean, their goal was to have it in this summer at one point when we first talked to them, actually in the spring. But even on their end, they were slow getting the contract back and those type of things. So I don't feel that there's that sense that if we come back and table it and say, can we talk about another location potentially, that they're going to walk. I don't get that sense right now. They could, but I don't get that sense.
so there's been a motion by Mr. Turflinger to table the discussion and a second by Raju Shah. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion to table carries 4-3. Yeah, I don't know, but it sounds like Mr. Markham will talk to him and bring that back to us next meeting. The second reading of technology handbook, Mr. Miller.
Yeah, this is just a formality, all these handbook changes are allowed. Go over it once, do over it, review it, think about it, so we're just here for the final reading. As we talked about last week, or last month, I apologize, most of the changes have just to do with the fact of updating it for the Chromebook, the fact that we went from the shell to, from a carrying case to a shell, updating the prices. So most of it's just minor changes to reflect the changes. Are there any questions that I can answer for you at this time?
All right, then we need a motion.
I'll move to approve.
I'm sorry, was that Rick?
That was me.
Okay.
Yep.
Mr. Esposito moved to approve the second reading of the technology handbook. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Mr. Hensley. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Approval of field trip to Sweetwater Sound and Costco. Dr. Lippy?
There was a revised too. Yeah, there was also revised, so it's Aptera now instead of Costco. But Shelley Leifer, our business teacher, would like to take her intro to business classes, her accounting, marketing classes, computer science, to Sweetwater Sound. It's a very popular spot for our kids to consider when they're looking for employment. And then we also, while she's out there, she's requested to also stop near Aptera, it's a software company, and because there's a lot of computer science jobs, it's a growing field. I know it's, I looked it up, I think it's on. I'm not getting anything. Yep, we're good. Got it. Okay. So we're looking for your approval for this field trip.
Is there a motion?
yes, so moved.
Motion from Mr. Bedke. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Okay. A motion from Mr. Bedke and a second from Mr. Esposito to approve the field trip to Sweetwater. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Administrative updates. MTA, Mr. Huber?
Dr. Grimmel let me know that the other administrators are going to be submitting their reports in writing, so something to look at with the MTA event for the next meeting. I positive things about the time, to be able to spread out meetings, and extend class time to work in your classrooms. So I was glad to see some change working out very positively. Each year bring lots of changes with it for everyone connected to schools, parents, students, teachers, all the staff. This year's no exception, but there's a lot of new energy, start of the new year, and so new staff and administrators. But that change can be exciting and a little nerve-wracking. So that's something that we as MTA try to help work out issues and talk through things with different teachers and groups. This is my 10th year teaching, my 8th at Manchester, and I don't think that there's been a year where I saw so many teachers involved in as many different initiatives and programs and things to start the school year this year. So I'm really excited about how much buy-in I'm seeing from the staff and everyone at the school this year. There's going to be some friction and some healthy debate about some things that come up. But while MTA and the administration provides a formal framework, we're working through things and collaborating through the process and a discussion. I'm really excited to see that Manchester staff and especially the new administrators, all the teachers involved, and the cooperation that we're seeing in a lot of these different programs and initiatives. I know that I'm excited for it. The last thing is that there is a public hearing on August 19th about our bargaining, and I did want to just state that this is a new formal requirement from the state. I know that school board's been forward with that, but for anyone who doesn't know, it's a new requirement, and anyone's welcome to come and comment, but it was a requirement that the state added to provide an opportunity for public input. Thank you.
Business Manager, Mr. Markham.
Just thank you for your approval of the items tonight, and I'll get in contact with AT&T and see if we can move forward on that. I just want to thank all the staff, teachers, custodians, bus drivers, everyone that has played a part in getting ready for the students to come tomorrow. It's an exciting time. I'm sure all the kids are excited. I know of one that is not. But he'll get over it. So no, just want to thank everyone and what everybody does for our school corporation.
Thank you. The superintendent report, Dr. Grimeau.
Yeah, just really excited about what we did yesterday and got together for about an hour. Our teachers did, and administrators and all of our staff, and it was a very exciting time for all of us, at least I hope. We had some of them doing cheers that didn't want to do cheers, but they did them anyway. So we're really excited about that, but we're ready for our students tomorrow. A lot of good things have happened in preparation, so kudos to everybody and thank you for what you do. Want to talk about August 27th. You should have on your calendars that we are getting together another exec session that we'll be doing at 6 o'clock with training, and I'm asking Dr. Adamson to come back and just lead the vision, mission, and doing some commitment statements. You all came up with belief statements, and we were going to be turning those into commitment statements, and we will be inviting the superintendent cabinet members to that so that we all can be trained and all be part of that. And then we will be rolling that out at another level, talking about a portrait of a graduate and what we want that to look like. But I'll be sharing all that plan with you on the 27th. So just know all that you've been waiting for, you will know on the 27th in that meeting. So 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Correct. All right, and board packets. As you see, you have quite a bit of paper in front of you. And I went to Tony and asked him if there's anything we can do to maybe get this electronic for you, and not in one big bulk piece, but maybe doing some things through Google Docs or getting you a device that you could bring back and forth with you. Does that sound like something that you would be interested in doing rather than having to kill lots and lots of trees every board meeting?
So moved.
Didn't even ask for a vote, I'm just asking for an opinion.
Think about it for a moment.
I would appreciate it electronically.
Okay, I will start moving that direction, working with Tony on that. We kind of have some ideas on how we can do that a little bit better. Organize a packet so that you can go through and you can look at the things you want to look at and don't have to look at the things you don't and have to go through the entire thing. So hopefully that will expedite some things for you. We will be reformatting the agenda. If you notice on this agenda up there, we have Roman numerals on the left side, and then we have A, B, C, D, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have A, B, C, D. We're just gonna try to streamline that a little bit, make it a little bit more reader-friendly for all of us. I've ran it past Missy and Jeremy here, and they like it, so we're gonna put something together, send it to you, see what you feel about it. If you feel like something needs tweaked, we can certainly do that, but I'm trying to get it so we're not flipping back and forth as we're doing our meetings. We should be able to see one document and see what we need to do, so hopefully we can get there with you. So anyway, just want to talk about yesterday when we did have our meeting, I challenged the entire staff to be a champion for our students, to stay focused on what we can control and not look and talk about all those things we cannot control. So everybody got a Be a Champion little frame. Missy put it together for us, so thank you, Missy. But I'm going to give each board member one of those so that you can remember that what our focus is this year is to focus on those things that we can control and be a champion for our kids. So it'll just be a good reminder for you all as well, so you know what we are all about this year and what we're talking about. And I already know some teachers that have told me that they're going to do it in their classroom tomorrow, so I'm excited about that. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The athletic sports additions, Mr. Screeton?
Nice. Coach Castle will come on up here with me here, so. I should have done this the first time. There is a new board member I haven't met and some new faces. I am Eric Street, the athletic director of the junior senior high school, and just wanted to present and share a little bit of information on a couple items that have just kind of been going on as far as athletics this summer. The first one, I'm going to do the unified sports, which Coach Vogel's here in the audience here today, so this is great. We've been accepted by the IHSAA, Commissioner Bobby Cox, Lee Lonzo, Director of Special Olympics in Indiana, to be kind of a partner school with unified sports. And it's a great program. It's year 2 here in Indiana with the high schools, with the IHSAA. And unified sports is a trademark program in Special Olympics. It's a joint effort between the IHSAA, Special Olympics, and Indiana. Offers certain programs and certain sports right now is flag football, track. They're looking to add bowling, bocce ball. It's just some ways to integrate your special needs students with what they call helpers, and it's great. Indiana's really taken off, and they're already a national leader in this program. So we reached out and got accepted. We got our packet the other day. Lee Lonzo came up personally, met with some of our student athletes. I don't know, we sent out some Facebook and Twitter pictures of the meeting, and it's a great program. We got one scheduled event for flag football. We're one of 42 teams that have joined this year from Indiana high schools. We are playing at Tippecanoe Valley this year, who did do it last year, so they really helped us along the way here. But it's Wabash, North Miami, us, and Valley. We have kind of a unified flag football night on September 26th at Valley. You can play on kind of both ends, play different teams. Kind of a cool little night. This will rotate, so I think it goes to Wabash next year, and then it'll come around to Manchester in 2 years. So just a real excited program that we've kind of linked up with, an initiative we've linked up with. The second one here tonight is we've just kind of started the beginning process, conversation conversation, dialogue, discussions. Coach Castle and I would like to kind of begin the process of bringing back an event to our track program that was once a stable success. We're looking to, maybe in the future here, bring back pole vault to our track program and to compete with TRC teams and Northern Indiana teams. We have a very strong track program, and we're losing some valuable points in these competitions. So we'll get into that here a little bit, but currently 7 of the 10 teams have it in our conference. We ask our student athletes to compete for conference and sectional championships every year. We feel this is a clear kind of disadvantage. When scoring a track meet, forfeiting these valuable points can have a huge difference in the results. Great analogy, which I know was in your packet that I heard, was it's like not being able to use the three-point line, and all square buckets have to count for 2. So that was I thought that would kind of resonated with me. We understand there's significant upfront costs. We're willing to have a discussion about how to revive, how to restore pole vault. We just think this would benefit our student body. We're up here today kind of championing for them, and we'd just like to add this experience to our track program, and gives us an opportunity to potentially host some larger track meets and generate a little bit of revenue. Tonight, I'm just here to kind of tell you our homework, what we've done. I've talked to all the conference schools. I got kind of a layout of how many athletes they have. We've had student surveys. There is a Manchester criteria and procedures for kind of adding a sport, but although we're not necessarily adding a sport, we're adding a portion of a sport, but we're looking at this baseline criteria. We're still looking at trying to kind of follow the guidelines as kind of a helpful, guide here for us. But what we're looking for, student interest was, we sent this out to the student body. We had 139 responses. 79% were athletes, but we do have a large number of athletes at the school. 84% indicated that they would be interested in starting pole vault. The same survey also indicated about a 73% interest in starting unified sports as well, just to kind of throw that in there. Talked with Tiffany Valley for quite a long time about, they're kind of the most recent school to add this. So we talked to them, we talked to Gill Athletics and Sargent Distribution. Paul Sargent is a guy that I know really well. He worked with Valley. Just a great track mind. He kind of came up and kind of talked about location, talked about cost saving ideas, startup, what kind of things we could do. That meeting was in June. In July, we met with Gaunt & Son Asphalt. They were the ones, and it wasn't a bidding process or anything like that. They were the ones that laid the track. So I just kind of brought them out and just kind of had some ideas on where this might look best. They told stories about trying to bring it. Our track is in decent shape, but it is starting to show its age a little bit. And he said that they ruined the Northfield track by bringing in all the equipment and doing it on the inside and everything. So I think the look is to maybe on the north side of the stadium there, kind of on the outside of the fence line. There's some room there. It doesn't interfere with any of our other practices. It doesn't interfere with the cross-country course. We were very diligent in kind of looking at this stuff. And, just kind of did our homework, like we said, and trying to kind of find ways that we could entertain this possibility. I'm going to let Coach Castle kind of talk about a few things here as well.
I'm a track coach.
Actually, you do. Oh, actually, you do because it's for the recording.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
It's real loud. Okay. The first thing I want to do, it's hard for me to see you and then look here, but I want to thank Coach Screeton. He has been so supportive, and he's put in endless hours crunching numbers, making contacts, laying groundwork, just so we can ask for the possibility to have you consider reinstating pole vault. If you don't know me, my name is Julie Castle. I've been the high school and track coach, the girls coach since 2001, and the boys coach since 2006. And I've done nothing but seen that team grow. In 2001, we had boys pole vault only. It wasn't a girls event. And Matt Barker was actually the coach. He was a young guy that sounded just like Matthew McConaughey. I just love to make him talk. But anyway, we went home. home, like 2002, I think we went home for the summer. We came back in the fall and the pole vault was gone. I didn't know anything about it going away. Neither did Coach Barker. Nobody had ever said a word to us. It was just gone. Our mats had been sold. Our equipment had been sold to a small college, which I felt really sorry for Matt at the time. However, the very next year they added girls pole vault. So then I felt sorry for us as well. I like to tell my kids that my girls track team has never had a losing season, ever. And back in the mid-2000s, we would have maybe 15, 18, 20 kids on a team. We've done nothing but grow. We've had years maybe where we didn't always have the best athlete, but I'll tell you what, we have a lot of try. Manchester High School track is known, we have a reputation for being a large, competitive team. As of right now, I will tell you, 2 years ago, 1 out of 6 students walking the halls at Manchester Senior High School was a track athlete. Last year we were down a bit, 1 out of 8 athletes, or 1 out of 8 students at Manchester Senior High School was a track athlete. We affect a lot of kids. We have 60 plus, up to 80 plus kids that come out for track, which Coach Sarver and I are really, really proud of. And I do have a couple, 3 boys that came tonight. I have lots of kids that would have liked to come. They are multi-sport athletes and in practice, so I do appreciate these guys showing up. What's hard about having a large team that's very competitive is they've had to sit back and watch other teams compete in something that they haven't had a chance. And meets, we give up anywhere from 9 to 18 points. That's 1/16 of our points. It's something we can't even compete in. And that's tough for them. And I could probably buy you all a steak dinner if I got $1 every time one of my students or my athletes said to me, "Can I please just pick up a pole? Can I please just go over? I can make that castle. I can make it." Well, we don't work that way. No, no, big no. And honestly, I never thought I'd stand before you before I retired, even to think about this possibility. So I really appreciate the chance. I do want you to know that in the last 2 out of the last 3 seasons, our girls track team has been undefeated. And 2 of those seasons, they've also won conference. And I want you to know that in order to win conference, they spotted McConaughey 18 points in pole vault before we ever started. And I'm going to share one story. The kids are really frustrated. My favorite story is actually when Wabash got their new young track coach, and we went down for a meet. And he set the pole at 5 foot, and he had his athletes, he had 3 athletes, only placed 3, threw 3 athletes over 5 foot. And we had, I think, 2 girl high jumpers that could jump 5 foot. And it's very, very frustrating. And my kids were just, they were beside themselves. And, you know, we just learned to keep our composure. And you know what? There's nothing we can do. We just smile and move on and try to beat them anyway. So, lastly, I'm not here asking you to reinstate pole vault or consider it for the athletic department. I'm certainly not asking you for me. I'm here because, in the words of Dr. Cremo, we want to be champions for our students. We want to be champions for our athletes, those 60-plus athletes that come out every spring and give it everything they've got to be successful and work so hard for us. We're here for them, and that's why we'd like you to consider reinstating pole vault. Thank you.
Questions or is this?
Does the board have any questions? Anything you want to say?
So how many students are interested in pole vaulting? I mean, I'm a little confused about your 84.1% interested in adding pole vault.
Okay,
Is that a participant interest or is
Not
that
necessarily. That was just interested in that. It'd be nice to have it. Coach Castle might be able to add to that a little bit, or Coach Sarver. It comes up. I guess I don't really have that number, I guess, per se, but there is a lot of conversation. And
I have probably, we talked a little bit last spring when I knew that he was doing some groundwork, and I have.
Sorry, we just need it for the record. Missy really appreciates it.
I just told AJ, I said, you'd be a great pole vaulter. I don't know if I can do it. He said, boy, that boy's got core strength. If you've ever watched him go 17-6 in state meet, core strength. Sam's here tonight, he would like to pole vault. Haley Kerr, Zoe Green, Gabby Brewer, who's also a jumper. I'm not even sure where they're going to find another event. You only have enter 4 events. I have a list, Don Lincoln. I have some very athletic kids who have the core strength, and they all have talked about it. The sad part is when you go to a big event, you can big meet, you can only jump 2. However, at the dual meets, the 3 ways, we could jump as many people as we wanted. And I know this question might want to come up, and I saw that you would be interested in knowing. We don't have a pole vault coach, which is true right now, but Dick Lemming, who is a legend at Northfield, has offered numerous times for us to go and learn from him. He would be glad to help our kids. And we go to track and field conference in Indianapolis every year. But we have a staff willing to go that extra mile to put in footwork to make this happen for our kids.
And if I could address that, Mike, I think it'd be fair to say how many kids do we have interested in high jump, or how many kids do we have interested in the 100-meter dash. And so I don't think I don't think this is a numbers game, in my opinion. You know, how many kids do we have interested in playing second base? And so the numbers are always small if you look at it in terms of that, because you can only compete 2 at a big event, or 3 or 4. So let's say the number is 3 or 4. I mean, that's probably true for every event in track. There's
As long as you don't put it in, it's not 0. So that's, I'd just like to know the student interest in it. And I do,
Yeah,
I support the sport because my junior year, Monty Weller went here and they started up, and they ended up getting a full ride to Purdue, right? So through
where
pole
you're
vaulting,
coming from then is if we were to approve it eventually, there's interest in supporting it. We'd have a handful of kids that would pole vault. I mean, so we're not just, so yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I think it's hard to base it off the judgment, because the number's always going to be small in any event in track. Just, that's the nature of the events.
When I was looking at the budget, I saw that we have $60,000 a year for athletic facilities, and looking at this estimate, it's $30,000, so that's half of the budget for a year. And you just mentioned that the track's going to need to be resurfaced. So I guess my question is, do you have a coaches committee? Do you have a strategic plan for 3, 5, 7 years? I mean, do the other coaches know that you're here asking for half of the budget? We have some other issues that could potentially pop up. We're playing soccer on a rented field. We're playing softball on a rented field, and at one time it would have, and that was the answer to Title IX. Today, I don't think we would pass a Title IX complaint comparing baseball to softball. So the crux of I'm talking, but I'm actually asking a question. Do you have a coaches committee that's working on a strategic plan for the next 3, 5, 7 years? I keep hearing about collaboration. This looks like an awful lot of money for a minute portion of, I think your thing here says 50 teams in 20 sports. And this proposal is going to eat half the budget for 1 year?
I think that's the initial to get it jump-started.
Okay.
But yeah, we're always collaborating as a coaching staff. We have meetings. There has, I know I pulled there was a strategic planning committee in the 2017 and 2018 put together with coaches, parent, and I guess maybe Coach Markham could maybe even, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know there was a strategic plan kind of put out there, and we're looking at that. We're revising it, obviously, in lieu of some things that have happened, and we're constantly working to get better. So we're trying. I think Dr. Brameau's statement of champion for the kids is very, we're trying to maximize the student-athlete experience. That's the #1 goal. And so we're looking at all ways, all the time, for any sport.
And I think the comment of resurfacing the track was if you were to put it inside the track, you would have.
Well, he mentioned that they destroyed Northfield's track because they put it inside, they brought all the heavy equipment in and it chewed it up. And so I know on one of the pages it kind of talked about maybe the north end zone, look, that's kind of been discarded. That wasn't a real possible location. He did put it on the map, but it would be better. There is concrete that kind of leads that way behind concession. They could run their trucks out that way. There is actually some asphalt already to the north, so there was just a location that they were looking at.
Did I misunderstand you, or did you say that our track is starting to wear and it's gonna need?
Yeah, just like the tennis courts probably need resurfaced, and, I mean, it's everything. The basketball courts need, updated every year, and we did the junior high gym this winter, or this summer, and it looks great. The high school's up for it next summer, and it's just constant wear and tear, so.
Would there be a possibility of maybe reaching out to the college and doing the pole vault over there to see how this works out?
Well, I'd have to work with the college AD. I don't know if I can get along with them, so.
It sounds like a personal problem to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're here for, just discussion, conversation. I mean, I think finding the logistics for that, and yeah, they have a nice facility they're putting in over there too, so it's, yeah. All that stuff's on the table right now for me. It's just, we're interested in trying to do this.
I'd be interested in seeing a plan to address several things at once, and then maybe we take it to a referendum.
Okay.
And, and see what the community's willing to support. Let's fix the softball, let's fix the soccer, let's fix the track. If we need to put pole vault in, I'd really like to see this collaboration happen, and I'd like to see a consensus of the coaches on what's the priority. Sign-off letter, if you will.
You have to remember though, pole vault is not a separate sport. Pole vault is an event.
Yeah, my daughter ran track by her, remember?
I do, she ran great corners.
Yeah.
Good runner.
Yeah, it just seems like an awful lot of money to put one event back in.
We're not denying that.
I mean, we gotta start somewhere.
Right.
So what are you asking them to come back with the all-in need?
I think it was just a report right now.
Yeah,
It's
right now,
just
that's-
information. I don't, like, that was my understanding of tonight. It was just information, and so I don't know that as a board, I don't think you're asking anything of us. Are you asking anything of us? Okay. Well,
Consider the possibility.
yeah, I really appreciate all the research that you've done, the thinking, and just, it is an expense, but as we've said many times from this board, money does not trump kids ever. And so thank you so much for the information and for bringing it. We really appreciate it.
I do have one more question. When I was going through the estimates from Gaunt and Sons,
Yes.
both estimates say that the rubberized surface is not included in that price, and I couldn't find what that rubberized surface was. That, did we miss a page when we sent the packet out, or did we not gather that information?
That would be, I think that would be more from our distribution, like this they would roll this out through, they'd have a runway. So that would come from the Sergeant Distribution and Gill Athletics.
Right, and like I said, you go through that, and it doesn't say anything about the rubberized surface for that asphalt runway. It's
You might be right, I guess.
Yeah, and then when you go to Gaunt and Sons, it says that that rubber surface has to be applied with either option and is not included, and I couldn't find, I thought maybe we missed a sheet or something.
No, you're probably right. I could get you this if you'd like. They're tonight.
Whenever you get it ready to bring back to the board.
Thank you. Summer CTE externships.
Could I just say, You know, something that would convince me if you brought in a couple girls or a couple boys that said, I'm interested in this
Well,
sport.
they were coming.
They're here.
They're here.
Next time, let them talk, because that's
Bring 'em
really,
up and
my,
let 'em talk.
you know, my ears are tuned to these kids, because that's why we're here, so.
Okay.
Hey, guys, do you want to come say something?
Right on,
course,
there you
there we
go.
go.
I have a phone full of, I'm sorry, I'm working, I'm so, anyway.
Oh, good, thank you.
My name is Sam Reichenbach, I'm a senior this year in high school. From the point of view of a track athlete, I agree with what both Pascal and Screen said. It is strange to see we're at a track meet and we see all the other athletes from the other school or schools competing in an event that we really just have to sit back and watch. And if we have the option or the opportunity to get those points available, I mean, we have a strong student athlete population, so it's not like we'd have a good chance. We would be very good at pole vault, especially in our
There we go.
So, but yeah, I definitely would push for this. I think it's a good idea. That's all I have to say. Yeah, I just think, just as Sam said from a student, like the main thing is just the points, right? Because I mean, you can go to a track meet, and you can have two different schools who are like head-to-head, get like first and second in every event, trade back and forth. So now you're down to the last event, and like Castle said, if it gets to a point where they get first in that, it's 16 points that they just go ahead of. And I mean, as Sam said, how we compare, how we perform is the word, in different events, just like, I guess not that too much, but how good we are in other events, it's just a testament to the fact that we could probably pull this off. And it would be, and even if you're looking from a money standpoint, we could hold bigger tournaments, I guess meets, is the word. Bigger meets here, we could even start to hold, bigger events, more teams, more money, more, just a bigger fan base coming, just as a community.
Awesome.
Hey, what's your name? What's
Thank
your
you.
name?
Sorry, my name is AJ Fortman.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I didn't know you wanted to hear tonight, I could have brought you probably half of us. So if you tell me that you want to talk about it tonight, I would be here. They're just great kids, great kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then the summer CTE externships, Mrs. Vogel and Mr. Hooks.
Through the Heartland Career Center, we have offered an opportunity to do the externship. This year, I was wanting to do what they were asking of us anyway, so it worked out great for me. Our special education students that are on certificate of completion have to be
Can I? I'm just interested. How many students in this then?
Currently, I will have 10, I believe.
And you get enough,
Special education department, and then Mrs. Leifer has another.
yeah, you get enough commitment from the community to get everyone in there?
So far,
Have you and Shelley talked about, do they ever work in pairs or anything like that at some of the organizations? Or?
we've had some in the past that have been interested in that, but it just kind of varies on the kids' schedules. Each kid's schedule is different, so their work-based learning periods might be different. But we're always looking to expand it and see what else we can do together. So it'll be really interesting this year, stepping up the game to more of what Shelley's been doing with her students, and we'll be creating websites for some of our kids. That will be a brand new, daunting experience, so figuring out how we don't overwhelm, but still provide that opportunity for them that their peers are experiencing as well.
Cool. Awesome work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hooks?
Good evening. I don't know some of you I've met, but thank you for what you're doing. Thanks for your time serving our school and our students. As was said, my name is Aaron Hooks, and I teach CTE classes here, Career and Technical Education. And so for the externship, I went to a company that many of you know called IMD. Todd Spiker, an alumnus of Manchester Schools, is the owner of the company, and he's very interested in helping our schools in any way that he can. In going into the externship, I had two goals. One was to update myself on the state of the art in processes in contemporary advanced manufacturing facility. The second one was to get some exposure to some CAD software that people use in industries around us, different than what we have used. And so the team at IMD worked out a plan that let me spend about half my time on the floor and half my time in with support services like engineering, quality, inspection. So it's really just a great experience for me, generally speaking. The takeaways from the experience, from my perspective, at least some of them were that I learned that while many of the machines that they're using are really sophisticated, they have a 9-axis machine, it's hard to even imagine doing something on 9 different axes. They have a 9-axis machine, which is very sophisticated, but at the bottom of it, the principles are still the same as what we do with the simple equipment that we have. So that was really encouraging to me, that the things that we learn here are applicable in real-world stuff, so our students can go into an industry situation and really apply stuff that they learn. It reinforced to me how much each area in a shop, a well-run shop, has to work with other areas. And it was, it's a great shop, so if you have a chance to go see it, I would recommend it. But I saw all their different functional areas working together, which was really encouraging. And it's a good thing for our students to really understand that, in the world, you've got to be able to get along with people. And so, it's one of the soft skills that just is a requirement for just about anything we do, particularly if it's in manufacturing. Another thing that that stood out to me is it reminded me of the real opportunities that are available to our students. I mean, any of our students, whether they go to Heartland and they come away from Heartland with a lot of skills already, whether they go through some of our CTE classes and they've got some skills, or whether they don't do any of that. I mean, these people are willing to train. They take people. It's evidenced by how many Manchester students work at that shop. I'm sure lots of other shops. But there are just lots of opportunities. And so anything that we can do to help them get ready, it just preps them to be one step ahead. But, I mean, there are students there that I never saw in any of my classes. They're doing well. So it's just encouraging that they can take people from all different levels and incorporate them in, help them from where they're at to get to a place where they're a productive team member. Another takeaway for me was that as I'd hoped, it introduced me to a CAD system that operates a little differently than what we use, and so I was able to take a little time and get to learn that some. In fact, I brought a little show and tell. One of the things that they said was, design something and we'll let you use our 3D printer to print it. So one of the projects I'm planning to do with 2 of my classes this semester is have one design something and the other one build it. But what they need is this motor control, which is inside the black box. So my thought was, well, I'll make a case for it. And make a case that will hold a couple cooling fans, and then when we implement it, we can put that right in. So I'm glad to hear you're an electrical engineer, Mr. Shaw. We might be calling on you for some help. I'll pass this around. You can take a look at it. But for me, that was a direct takeaway of one of the things that I wanted to happen, was just to get some experience with a different system. And then the last thing that I would say as far as a takeaway was that, and I mentioned this already, I really came to understand how much IMD wants to help our schools by providing opportunities. So I would encourage you as board members, if you don't know that organization, stop by and see it. They're interesting. Oh, I'm sorry. The last thing that I thought was a takeaway is that I learned that IMD is really interested in helping our students. So you as board members, if you haven't met Todd or haven't been to that company, give them a call, go see them. They'll be glad to show you around, and you'll get to see a lot of Manchester students who are working there. A couple things I want to implement as a result of this. One of the things that we've not done is to use tolerancing, which is used throughout industry very much. Kids need to know that when you tell somebody how to make something, you can't say make it exactly this size, you've got to give it tolerance. And so that's really something that they need to learn. We want more of that this year. Revisions on drawings is something that industry uses, and we haven't been teaching it, so that's another thing we're going to change, just to, again, make them understand what real world does, so that when they step into it, they have a chance to really know what's going on. And the last thing is introducing a new CAD software that's free, educationally free, but it's a lot like some of the stuff that's used in industry around us, and kids can collaborate a lot more with it on projects and assemblies. So those are some of the things that I hope to change as a result of this. Do you have any questions that I can answer?
Go ahead if you want, Dave.
You go ahead first.
Well, I was just going to ask, how many industry partners do we have
As far as industry partners?
with the high school now?
I mean, are you talking about advanced manufacturing? I mean, I don't have a total. Incipio, Paragon.
Huntington, Paragon.
Incipio's in Huntington. That was kind of nice. They're just kind of coming on board because, you know, Troy's on the southern end of our district, and he's a Memphis kid, so, you know, that's just kind of new.
It's the ones you want to latch on to, right? They're growing.
Certainly Zimmer Biomed is one that's kind of coming on. Like they're finally showing interest in high schools because they've always just kind of taken from Todd's companies that size. And so now they're starting to, because there's such a need. There's like literally, you know, there was 350 open positions in Warsaw 2 years ago. When I met with Zimmer over the summer, they had 300 alone. And so we didn't include those. And so if you start to show interest, the IMDs, the pre-med tech right down the street,
Yeah, okay.
And Incipio. Oh, and Paragon, we did have finally a successful intern over the summer, and they reached out to another student. Charlotte just made them aware of this week, just turned 18. They've got some stipulations on age.
Yeah.
That kind of put us back a little bit, but we're interested in getting that kid plugged in. And
Well,
of course, IMD's probably been the biggest.
What I hope is through our strategic planning, that we set up some metrics like a scorecard, and I think that's one of the biggest ones, because these organizations want us to be, they're looking for people for a pipeline for these kids. And the other thing that, the other side on this is, so I don't see, there may be, how many females do we have in machining?
I just talked just about Troy. None that I know. And Troy's like, I've got, and this is Incipio, he doesn't have, it's more men than women. But, they walk by a shop, it's dirty, it's kind of, it's struggle, but not just that gender, but any kid that walks by a shop. If it's dirty, and this is operating room clean environment. So certainly it's attractive to kids to go see IMD, to go down to pre-med tech and see how the operating room clean. And when you show parents that type of an environment, that is something they would be more embracing. Because what moms and dads, I mean, 70% of our moms and dads want their kids to what? Go four-year college. And to try to send them down a different track, to try to break that dream, that's just true. But when they see a company like IMD and Scipio is high-tech, they have a little easier time, like I can see that they could be successful. Great benefits, great pay. And that's been our message for our kids. And it will continue to be.
I'll just get straight to the point. I think, we're missing opportunity with the female gender inequality is all I'm gonna say. So when we talk referendum, or if we talk in advanced manufacturing lab, I don't think it's only machining equipment, right? We need comparators, you need you need a CMM, there's a whole spill of jobs out there for these young gals, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in quality. So I just kind of want to make that point, and hopefully that'll be, as we put this thing together, we're going to start putting some metrics in these categories and start driving, towards that point. But thank you. Great job.
If I may, my son actually works for IMD, and he says that they are expanding so fast. Matter of fact, he just asked to put out a weekend shift. They had a hard time implementing it because they need people. And they are desperate for people, but he also said what's really important is soft skills. He said they got people who are qualified to do the work, but don't want to show up. So somehow we have to get it instilled in our students, the soft skills. So that's just somebody who works there. And that's good.
I will tell you, that's also why they like Manchester kids. They love our agriculture base, our blue collar workers. I know we're not all in agriculture, but boy, they love seeing a Manchester kid because they know they got a good shot at getting work ethic. And that's something we continue to try and still. We're not all the way there yet, but it's certainly something we're continuing to kind of push our kids to. We see it supported. That's what we do every day. We take attendance. We make sure kids are held accountable, and we've got a ways to go. We're not hitting a home run, but certainly we're trying to make strides on that.
Mr. Hooks, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you have adequate facilities for CTE going forward? I mean, we've sat here for months listening to internships, externships, trying to get the 70% of our kids that aren't going to college. Have you got with Dr. Lippy and Dr. Rameau and made up a list of what you need? I mean, Heartland's a jewel. Everybody knows where I stand on that one. But the kids that aren't going down there need, like Julie says, these soft skills. Do you have what you need?
Well,
and you don't have to answer right now.
No, I'm happy to give you what I know offhand. That's a question that you could answer many different ways. We're getting by, but we're not getting by as well as we could. Do we have a list? Do I have a list? Yes, I do. Dr. Rameau, no. I just met her today for the first time, but Dr. Lippy, we've talked about a list of equipment that would be really appropriate for kids going into that industry. So I think to answer that question, yes. Can we do a better job with different equipment? Yes, we can. Do we have to have all the stuff that's out there? No. I think one of the things that it was impressed upon me is the basics are very important. If you know the basics, you can do a lot of things, and you can learn about anything when you get into industry. But anything that we can do to give the students an advantage, it's an advantage. So if they walk in there with the ability to understand coding, and the next person comes in and they don't have that understanding, well, they're going to advance faster. And it will, look at a lot of things. It'll sort people out into what they want to do and what they don't. It's just, opening those opportunities. I think we can do a better job, just speaking in general. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you for your time and for your report. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. Are there comments from visitors? Go ahead.
start, but just want to echo the sentiments that Castle, Mr. Street, and the athletes that were able to be here said about pole vaults. And I guess I just ask the board as you're thinking about this, and I know there's a cost associated with it. I'm a numbers guy as much as anyone, but to keep in mind that we're compare apples to apples. Having to rent a soccer field doesn't prevent a kid from playing soccer on our team. Having to rent a softball field doesn't allow or prevent a girl from playing on the softball team. Not having pole vault or the mats or the poles or the runway prevents a kid from that opportunity. So to be fair, yes, we can talk about all the needs, and that list would be endless. I don't care if it's athletic or otherwise, like it is in my own home, you know. But this is another opportunity for kids. And I can tell you there are kids walking the halls right now that do not participate in the sport that would if we had that. Because there's some of the 84% of the 139 students, you can do some simple math, that would be there if we had that event for them. And with that said, you know, we're teaching them those soft skills, the hard work and the attendance and things that they need. So yes, it's $30,000, and maybe the total would come in under that. I mean, when I talked to Timmy's coach, I think their mats were 18, and of course they had a runway, so that helped them. But nonetheless, it's another opportunity for kids. I think we have to keep that in mind. So please consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from visitors?
Another track coach.
Running up there.
I don't know if most of you understand that we have like one of the best facilities for track. Our track is great. All of our equipment is wonderful. We go to some track meets and we're just like, oh my gosh, their tracks are in awful condition. Their hurdles are old and they're falling apart. And we have had to use blocks that are just awful. And so we are lucky that we do have a nice facility, and it would just enhance our facility for the pole vault, but it would also bring more people in so that we can have bigger meets. And I'm only a junior high coach, but that impacts my kids too, because I'm bringing up kids. I have about 65 to 70 every year. I'm bringing them up to the high school. And so from a track coach's position, it would really be helpful if we weren't losing points before we even start the meet. We're already in the hole before we start the meet. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Comments and questions from board members. I would just like to say, Dr. Grimeau, we're really glad that you're on board with us, and we're looking forward to the new year. And I always appreciate seeing the way passion is empowered, and it's the thing that struck me the most when I first took seat on the board, and it continues to do so. And so I just thank you for that leadership. And for those of you who gave reports, I am always inspired when I hear you speak, because I get to see the way like that passion can drive us and what a difference it makes. And it just, I just really appreciate that. So thank you so much. We did want to share.
I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I hate to make this comment after that great comment. But if on the cell phone tower, if you're concerned about the health aspect of it, I'd encourage you to go to the American Cancer Society, and it addresses cell phone towers and cancer. And from what I was able to glean right here, from their perspective, there would not be a problem. There's not an increased risk of cancer from a tower. So if there's other variables anyway, but that was part of the discussion, and I just did a little bit of research right there quickly. So I'd encourage you to go to that cancer.org, American Cancer Society.
Other comments? Questions from the board?
I'd just say anytime, we look at, look at cash outlay or capital outlay. I think one thing that would make this easier is it's just like in business, we're typically looking at these things as a cost, so $30,000 for pole vault. On the other side of it, if when you guys come to the board meeting, if you, like the kids coming up, that means everything to me to hear from them. On the other side is do your cost benefit analysis, because if we're having, okay, take it for instance, if you're having a couple large track meets and we're pulling in, you know, kind of the Dick Miller days, right? Where we've got, you know, cross country and you've got this place loaded with buses, you know, that's far over $30,000 you're doing for this community. So don't forget we lie in this community, and there's a net effect to the community when we make these investments. So I think we're kind of you know, a lot of times when I hear that, we're missing half the boat here. And it's just like with the manufacturing lab or the quality things. At some point in time, they'll quit pulling them up there, and these companies will start moving into Manchester if we do the right thing. You know, so that's all the comment I had, so.
The cross-country invite is growing rapidly thanks to Jody Sarver, so it is getting back to the, 80s, 90s, to the Dick Miller days, so it's.
30 high school teams, 15 junior high, nearly 1,000 runners, so you're talking probably 2,500 to 3,000 extra people here that weekend. They're spending money somewhere to eat, so there are ways to bring money back. Pole vault's the same. Now, we can't talk about how specific track meets that we have pole vault. But
Rios County would do pole vault down Northfield.
That's what I'm saying, though, Brent, you know, look on that side of the equation sometimes when you guys are making your case, so, thank you.
Good point, something to remember, as you're considering the proposal is what could be generated as revenue back. I mean, how do we offset some of the 30,000?
Sell 3 cell towers, do they want more than one?
3 years.
One in your front yard, maybe.
About got one, so.
All right, the last thing that I'd like to share, Mr. Flack, you have something?
I just real quickly, I just want to extend, I just want to say a big thank you to Ford Meter Box. I've been doing this for about 14 years, and every year we get a check from them for $15,000, and it's incredible that they continue to give to our community and to our school corporation. So just want to give them a big thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I think they're both.
The last thing that we would just like to share is, Mr. Flack, we wanted you to know that on behalf of the board, we nominated you for the ISBA 2019 Outstanding Boardsmanship Award. And just wanted to let you know that and publicly acknowledge your service and your vision that you have for us as a board and for Manchester Community Schools. So thank you for that, and thank you to the board also for getting behind that and spurring us to action. And thank you. Mrs. Grimeau reached out to some people so that we could know exactly everything you've done. And really, I don't think anybody can know everything that you've done, because it seems that a lot of it is just out of your passion for kids and making this the best place that we can have. So thank you so much for that. With that, we're going to adjourn, and we had an executive session that began at 7 p.m. So we will see you there.